Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sustainability in the Sea. We're in that little gap between Earth Month and World Oceans Month, and I wanted to keep the momentum going for us. This episode is kind of on a topic that is long requested and I know really interested. There's a lot of interest from the FutureSwell community, and it's about plastic pollution. And the plastics crisis is obviously a challenge of not just our generation, but future generations as well. And today, in this episode, we're sitting down with CEO of Plastic Odyssey, Simon Bernard. Him and his team work to run global plastics expeditions in partnership with UNESCO to the most polluted areas in the world. And they're not just removing plastic, they're working with local communities and setting up trainings. They're setting up recycling facilities and creating circular systems so that the plastic can be reused into usable materials. And they're sharing solution blueprints from other parts of the world to make sure that that knowledge is used to address the plastic challenges in so many different places. As a fellow founder, I really wanted to understand what challenges he's faced because this organization has grown so tremendously in the last number of years since they've been around. So we talk a little bit about the roles needed on an expedition, like ocean engineers, the challenges he's faced as a founder, what Plastic Odyssey has already accomplished and what they hope to accomplish, how they bridge on board expeditions and create their vessel in a way that makes it an ambassador for solutions, and then also how they plug into more systemic changes like the circular economy and the plastics treaty. Super important conversation. You're going to learn something, I guarantee, and I can't wait to hear your feedback. So that's all for now. Welcome back to Sustainability and the Sea. Welcome, Simon, to Sustainability in the Sea. I am so
Thank
happy you're
you.
joining us for today. Plastic Odyssey is an organization that I've seen from afar for a while, but now we get to talk to the CEO and founder of it. And so, before we get into anything, where are you tuning in from, and where's your favorite place in the ocean?
Plastic Odyssey, it's actually a journey, it's so usually people are asking me if there is like a spark. There is like there is like a spark when I was in Senegal in 2016, when I really saw the plastic and the amount of pollution that was going into the ocean. But I would say it's also a journey of you know in commitment in a way where you slowly discover all the problems that the ocean have, but also all the solutions around. So yeah, it started in 2016 from Brittany in France, and yeah, my favorite place in the ocean. That's kind of difficult. I mean, I grew up in Brittany, but I also love Corsica. Corsica
Mm,
is a small island south of France. And more recently, I discovered Polynesia, French Polynesia, which
wow.
also I found really amazing.
Yeah. I visited French Polynesia as well and stayed on a sailboat for 10 days. And it was like one of the most memorable trips of my life. The ocean there is so inspiring.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I love the life, the wildlife you still have there, and also the people are really nice, so
Yeah,
it's important.
yeah. But I think that the plastic aha moment or spark moment is such a important piece of my journey too. I think when I came out here, we're in the middle of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch here in Hawaii, and I didn't realize how much just a little bit of weather or swell could create so much plastic pollution and microplastic pollution on the coastlines. When you felt like your plastic journey started in 2016, was it because you came to an area that had microplastics or had a lot of landfill waste, or what was kind of the experience you had that made you realize how big of an issue plastic pollution is?
But it wasn't really plastic that was floating, so like ocean plastics. Because when you're at sea, you don't see a lot of them. I mean, you have these gyres, but the plastic washed back on coastlines. And in my particular experience in 2016, it was the coast of Senegal that were heavily polluted by the plastic that was consumed and disposed of in the city. So it was like the plastic, you could see it was going from the city, from the consumer through, because there was no bin or no collection, anything. And then ending up and just going to the ocean, you know.
Hmm.
So obviously not only plastic, it was also wastewaters. This green, I remember this green water going directly flowing to the sea, and yeah, it used to be one of the most beautiful beach of Senegal. So when you see now how it looks like, it's frightening.
Yeah, I have a colleague in one of our FutureSwell programs that does ocean conservation work in Senegal, and she told me that the experiences that they have there with like the front line of the ocean crisis really underscores the way that different communities with different access to resources really experience the brunt of like the rest of the world's decisions and the consequences of that. And I feel like that's something that you observed while you were there.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes when you think about the solutions and how to solve the problem, but you don't know how the problem is, and how it looks like.
Yeah.
For example, when we were in France, we were not really aware of what was the pollution, what was the problems, what the people were experiencing, and the challenges there. So it's difficult because at the same time the decision maker, most of the time they don't know what it is, don't know
Hmm.
what the problem is, and they take decision or they don't take decision without knowing what it is.
Yeah. And I believe that, when you think about someone like you who has built something as big as the Plastic Odyssey, can you share a little bit about your background and expertise in it? You obviously had this spark moment where your awareness was jump started, but did you study marine science? Did you go into it with a different background? Can you share with us a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, sure. So I've studied maritime sciences and engineering. So I graduated from the French Merchant Marine Academy, and I was kind of a captain of commercial vessels, but also engineers, mechanical
Cool.
engineer. So I had this double background of both engineering that I love, innovation in engineering, but also the link to the ocean because my office was basically the sea, the ocean every day. So that's kind of, yeah, the two different aspects of my background that joined together now, and that I love actually.
I think that ocean engineers are such a growing part of the marine science conversation. We have a few engineering firms here in Hawaii that do renewable energy work at depth, and it can be really difficult to get something to survive in ocean conditions. I feel like the ocean is so corrosive. And I think for anyone listening, ocean engineering, if your brain works that way, it's such an important piece of like the larger puzzle. But when you were debating how to use this expertise that you've invested in, was like open ocean expeditions or mission driven expeditions something that you thought of initially, or did it come later?
It actually come later because I didn't know exactly what it was like, and I wasn't really in this field of expedition. So it's a bit chance that I ended up spending my time as a young officer. I had a lot of holidays. You work 1 week and you have 1 week off.
Hmm.
So every week almost I had time, and I spent my time to in a place like an explorers incubation. Let's call it like that in Brittany. And so I discovered many projects going diving under the ice or working on low technologies for emerging countries. And so that's how it started. I started as a volunteer and discovered that this was also a possible thing to do. And so after this experience, that's when I decided with Alex, my co-founder, that that was something that I wanted to do, not transporting passengers or stuff, on the ocean, but really crossing and sailing for for a good reason, and with the meaning. So yeah, it was kind of this experience in 2016, 2015 that that's how I discovered basically this field, this yeah, expedition world, let's say.
Yeah, the expedition world is a lot of logistics, a lot of leadership. Um, I think that ultimately it's something that is really attractive to young field technicians, to new graduates. Can you share a little bit about what Plastic Odyssey does?
It's a good question. It's a bit complex when you look at that at the beginning. When people hear about Plastic Odyssey, they see a boat, they see the plastic name,
Hmm.
so they think we just clean up the ocean, but it's not what we do. So what we originally wanted to do is turn off the tap of plastic by going to places and countries where there is a problem of waste, basically. So the source of the plastic pollution of ocean plastic, and then implementing solutions, whether it is reducing the use of plastic, but also the circular economy, improving waste management. Sorry.
No worries.
Um, and so it started like that. We thought, okay, we will turn a research vessel into an ambassador of all the solutions that can be replicated in all the countries that would need it. And so what we did for 3 years was going to all these places and then meeting, exploring what are the solutions locally to document it, and then sharing what we have learned in other countries. So it was really
Mm.
like a catalyst to replicate and scale all the best solutions that were emerging in Africa, in Asia, in South America, and then also sometimes improving what we were seeing by with all the engineering expertise we had. So it was really like creating a big community of solution and makers, and then creating a big catalog of all the solutions that can be replicated everywhere.
I think that what I love about your model is that by showcasing all the solutions, you also are sharing it with different areas. I believe that's such a missing piece in the ocean conservation world of this worked here, how can we adapt it for another country? What were some of the solutions that you have aboard the vessel? Is it like a recycling facility, or what types of things are you showing people?
So the boat is divided in two parts. The front part is the where we live, and that's the space where single-use plastic is not allowed. So we try to, it's not 100% successful, but almost. We try to live with 20 people without using single-use plastic. So we have a lot of solutions, starting with water to turn fresh water that is not potable, because in many countries, like in India or everywhere we go, usually tap water is not potable, drinkable. So we turn it into drinkable water so that we don't use plastic bottle. That's one of the solutions. And we did that experimenting and testing solutions for all types of plastic we were using. So now we have like a room dedicated to creating our own food. So we have the kitchen with the chef, but we also have somebody in charge of making, for example, fresh pasta, plant-based milk, granola for the mornings, and all the different stuff we would buy in plastic packaging before. So we are testing all these solutions on the fore part of the vessel. And then on the aft part is the recycling part, is what we call clean up the past. So it's not solutions we want to promote for the future, but it's solution for the past and the present. So all this legacy plastic that we have, and that is impacting a lot people and the environment. And so we have machines to recycle plastic. Our expertise is waste to product. So we take something that has almost no value, a plastic that nobody wants, and we turn it into a finished product. So it can be furnitures, outdoors furnitures like trash
Mm,
bins, benches or
yeah.
construction building materials, transport pallets, all the different products that can be useful for local communities. And so because we do finite product, we're able to increase the added value and then to have a viable business model and in places where usually you cannot do that.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge, creating jobs while avoiding the plastic to be left on the ground.
That was something I really wanted to talk about was how part of creating a full circle waste system and creating a future for planet ocean requires us scaling up the amount of people working on solutions. And so how does Plastic Odyssey create jobs for the local communities that you are either visiting through the expedition or that you work with as partners?
So it's actually quite a complex process to be able to not lose money while turning this plastic into something.
Hmm.
So we started by just documenting and releasing open source knowledge, drawings, and business models. But then we realized that it wasn't enough, and then people would not have the expertise or time to build everything. So we then started to build our own factories, turnkey factories that local entrepreneurs could just use and make their own business like that. But then still we realized how much I know how many challenges, there is while doing that because you need to organize plastic collection, you need to find off-takers, so customers to buy the products, you need to do the maintenance, training. So it's a really complex business. And so the last iteration of all of that was imagining like building franchise model where we can help local entrepreneurs to do all the difficult parts of this social business. And so now we are designing, building factories, but also finding money and loans for the factories, and then finding the customers, organizing collection, doing training with recycling schools, and doing the maintenance. So you have to do all of this at a time if you want to be sure that it will succeed and not fail after a week.
Hmm.
That's what we're trying to do now.
Yeah, I think that when organizations come in and they try to implement a solution and then they leave if the expertise and leadership and the skill training hasn't been handed off or been adequately invested in local communities, it cannot be sustained. And obviously, that's not anyone's shared goal. And so I'm happy to hear that you guys try to have a holistic approach to the ways that you create jobs. Um, and the ways that you kind of grow that part of like the blue economy pillar of your organization. What are some challenges you've had and some solutions you've been trying out recently in that part of your work?
And so, yeah, on this part, I think it was really finding this model where we are sure that these factories we're building are going to be used 100% of the time
Yeah.
to recycle plastic and create jobs and not create other problems like environmental problems or social issues, health issues. That's the main challenge. And that's why this franchise model is really interesting because we are part of it in every country. The idea is we have our own factory and our own team. So we are kind of skin in the game, we say, and that's exactly the case also with this model where we also operate our own factory and show um, what can be done to other franchisees that operates just next to us, their own factories. But we share, we work together, we mutualize a lot of stuff, tools, platform, and so now we are sure that everything's going to work better than if it was just like leaving a factory like that.
Yeah.
But still, it's quite a challenge because you need to find the offtakes. Probably that's one of the biggest challenges. What do you do with this plastic, and who's going to buy it at a price that makes the model sustainable
Yeah.
and without harming the environment more? So it's really this challenge. So we've now have a catalog of products, um, and still trying to improve it and design new products that can answer local needs, local
Hmm.
market.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your expeditions. How long are they? Where have you been going this year? Where are you going next?
So this first, let's say we have done a first expedition that is almost done. The vessel is in Cape Town right now, after 3 years of ocean crossing from Africa to South America to the Pacific to then Asia and Indian Ocean. And this was the first expedition was really, as I was saying, trying to stop for 3 weeks in all the countries with a problem of waste management and a problem of plastic in general, and try to find solution and to train local entrepreneurs so that then we can replicate factories and solutions. But we also realized that there are places on Earth where there is nobody living, uninhabited places, but a lot of wildlife. So places that are very important to protect. And especially there are 50 UNESCO World Heritage sites.
Mhm.
And the problem is because nobody is there, nobody take care of it, in a sense, and the plastic still comes. There is no um, frontier, so there is no border. The plastic is just washed back and then end up on those very pristine places. So that's actually the future of the expeditions. It's going to be to reach those places. So in parallel of all the factories and what we are still doing on land in cities, we will use the boat and then build a new one
Mm.
to focus and be dedicated to UNESCO World Heritage sites that are polluted by plastic waste. That's really the future of Plastic Odyssey now. And we want to do three things. We want to do science, to bring scientists with us because it's places that are difficult and expensive to go to. So it's interesting for scientists to be able to join and study these places. But then also protect by removing the plastic and educate by raising awareness, bringing some amazing stories and content, pictures and footage from these places, so that we can also raise awareness among children and maybe advocate also for a plastic treaty.
Yeah.
So that's really the plan for the following years.
Wow, that's so exciting. And also,
Mhm.
what an amazing, like, dreaming so big, right? I had a chance to go on an expedition around Hawaii, and I was a storyteller. And so it was about bringing the activities that were going on aboard to people through the internet, through social media, through classrooms. And I love that you're incorporating a storytelling piece in the expeditions because there's only so many people who can actually go aboard the vessel. And the research that comes out of the expeditions that you're helping to facilitate may take months or years to be ready for the public. And so to have it be distributed through storytelling can be such a quick and while it's happening narrative to tell, right? So I wish you all the best of luck in that next chapter. What an incredible thing on the horizon.
Thanks so much. Yeah, we've been, I mean, the storytelling has always been an important part
Mhm.
because I think, as you said, you can also, create a lot of awareness with just like movies, sometimes telling about what you're doing, and the children suddenly discover new jobs, new way of doing stuff. So it's really powerful. We've been doing three documentaries for TV for this first expedition, and we are working on a TV show for the US actually for
Wow.
the following ones. So we are hopeful that this TV show is gonna be released quite soon. But yeah, it's gonna be about this all these impossible cleanups and crazy expedition on remote places.
Yeah, I also I think that anyone who's worked in the marine debris issue sees the way that it can get to every corner of our earth and every ecosystem, regardless of if human activities are taking place there. And so to have like an entire expedition priority going to areas that are more wildlife concentrated instead of human concentrated is such a like key part of the solution. You mentioned that, part of your work is training local entrepreneurs. You're an entrepreneur yourself, you're a founder. I'm a founder. I think that building the ideas of tomorrow are come with their own set of challenges that we frankly just aren't prepared for in school or in the classes and technical training that we get during our early career. What are some of like the biggest lessons you've learned as you've grown the impact and mission of this organization?
I think it's what I realized is that sometimes experts don't have the solution
Yeah.
because they've been doing business as usual all their life, so they don't know about um, all the possibilities, all the solutions that are not what we are doing at the moment, that are
Hmm.
something outside of the box. And that's what I really discovered. Many times people told me, what you want to do is impossible, and then eventually we found a way to do it that they didn't thought about it. So that's what I find the most interesting and powerful way. For example, the Henderson expedition, when we went in 2024 on this very remote UNESCO island. That was the first one that nobody ever managed to clean up because of the coral reef surrounding the island. And there was actually a British expedition that tried, and they went to this island, they collected the plastic, but they were not able to remove it because of this reef that has no path through it. And they were telling us it's no, it's a nonsense. You shouldn't go. We thought about everything, and there's only a helicopter that can remove this plastic, but it's forbidden because of the birds. And so they really were doing everything so that we were not gonna go.
Yeah.
And in the end, we just thought about a crazy idea of using a parasail, like a parachute that was towed from the vessel, and we were able to lift bags like super sacks of like 400 kg, so half a ton almost, above the coral reef. And then all of a sudden, people were like, "Oh, okay, we didn't think about that." And eventually it worked. It was just a crazy idea, and we just say, "Okay, let's try to do it." We don't have a lot of money, so just let's buy an old um, parasail. And then we didn't have a winch, and we didn't have money to do all the engineering, so we just bought an old motorbike and removed the aft wheel and then turned it into a winch. And so the motorbike was like welded on the boat, and the aft wheel was spinning and pulling the cable to tow the parasail so that we could, have the power to lift the parasail and to lift the waste out of this island. And we were able to remove 10 tons in the end. So everything that was on this island, and recycle it on the boat. So yeah, it was really a crazy experience, and a good proof that actually, even if you don't have money, you can have ideas, even crazy ideas, and sometimes it can work. So yeah, it's
That is one of the craziest things I've ever heard. A boat, a bicycle as the wench, parasailing out super sacks to not, harm the coral reefs that are surrounding the island. That's engineering. That's ocean engineering if I've ever
Yeah,
heard it.
exactly. That's crazy engineering. And I think because we are a lot of young guys and women and young chaps, and so we don't have these limits that
Yeah,
sometimes maybe other can have, and so yeah, just like the craziness that sometimes work. That's
yeah.
what I love.
I also think that when we think about imagining and creating the solutions of tomorrow, I could not agree more that when you talk to certain folks that have been in it a while, they only know what they know and what the systems they grew up in have offered. And that's such a important reason for young people to become founders. I think a lot of young people have imposter syndrome, saying like I should wait till I have more experience before I start my own organization or I start my own business. But when you start it, I started my organization when I was 26. And when you start it in your early 20s or yeah, I had to figure a lot of things out on the fly, but also you're less in the weeds of what the current system is, and you're able to bring in those new ideas and those fresh ideas. And so, um, one question I had for you as a founder is, what was the moment when you decided you were going to start something of your own? I know you shared a moment when you realized the scale of the plastic problem, but did someone tell you you should really just, Simon, you should really go do this on your and do it yourself, or was it internal?
Not particularly. I think it was also a journey where I started um, early in my like when I was studying actually at the university. I started some project, students project that was really like kind of entrepreneurship. So there was this I mean, competition where we had to invent the boat of the future called Hydro Contest in Switzerland, and so all the architects and engineering school were coming together to build vessel. I mean, small model vessel that was reducing the amount of energy consumed, and then that was the first for me experience in terms of entrepreneurship that I had to convince a team, sponsors, and build something, and then take part in the competition. And so I loved it. I loved doing something from scratch, and then ending up doing something that also is very difficult. And so I think it was this. It was like starting to discover at a small scale what doing something on your own and launching a project can mean. And so it was that I was missing during my job as a merchant navy officer. I didn't have this entrepreneurship aspect.
Yeah.
And so I think you could, I mean, maybe it's not for everyone, but I think a lot of people would prefer doing their own stuff and own project and be a founder, as compared to having a normal job, let's say, or like
Yeah.
being an employee. So yeah, I think it's just something that maybe not everybody would be made for that, but I think it's important not to I mean to listen to what your parents are saying, or environment that just stop you before you even think about it.
Yeah. I had a lot of people um, tell me not to, actually, at the time, but they don't say any of that now.
Yeah, exactly. I think you need also to have the chance sometimes to have um your parents or friends like being supportive in a way. My parents always told me really do what you want. And I remember my father was like, "Are you sure you don't want to, stay, in the company you are? Because it's good. It's a good job. I just finished my studies and just started
Yeah.
to work." And he was like, "It's really a good job, and the security aspect of it." And so even though he was like, "You should really do what you want to do, what you love," he had this tiny like reaction of, Are you sure? Are you sure of what you're doing?" But then he was really supportive, all the times. And I think not everyone has this chance
Hmm.
of, having your family to support. And sometimes you have a lot of influence.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that's probably the main challenge. And that's why you need to meet people that think like you and that have done stuff like that to get inspired and to find the motivation.
Yeah, I think you're doing that for some of our listeners today. So thank you.
I hope. I hope so.
One of the plastic pollution issue is such a big one because I don't know how it is in France, but in the US, we really subsidize a lot of the fossil fuel infrastructure and plastic refineries and work here that's so harmful and goes against the future we're building. And so this can be a really big challenge. There's material innovation, there's waste stream solutions, there's the local job training work that a lot of this you're involved in. What do you think one of the biggest solutions in the plastic pollution conversation is right now that we're not doing enough on?
And the challenge, I think, is that there is not one solution, and And there's this fight now that I see where people are, saying, no, we shouldn't do that, we should do that, we should only focus on this or this. And when you look at scientific reports, you realize that there is not one single solution that can solve the problem.
Yeah.
And so it's really the mix of all the solutions from very upstream by, like banning plastic, single-use plastic and all the plastic we can ban actually, to reducing our consumption as a consumer, to improving waste management, collection and cleanups. That's all the solutions we need to do at the same time. So that's the challenge, and we need to start and put efforts where I think where it's the most feasible and quick, to put in place. I mean, I would love to have a plastic treaty with a high ambition that will be put in place and solve the problem like that. But it's just like I also see the reality and the complexity, and talking sometimes with government worldwide, you realize that it's not an easy task, and it will take decades probably to be enforced. And even if we have this high ambition treaty, most probably it won't be enforced on many countries in many countries. So that's the big challenge, and that's why I think we need to still carry on and to still um, put a lot of energy in that, but not forget about the other more concrete solutions that can be put in place today.
Yeah.
And that's what I love doing. So we put a lot of energy in this. Some people put more energy in advocating and plastic treaty. I think we need to do that as well. But yeah, definitely it's really, I think the challenge we have today is there is too much competition between people that want the same thing in the end, less plastic in the ocean, a better ocean. And there are so many fights, people saying, oh no, we should do this and not this. And I think it's a shame because in the end, we should all join forces to try to find the big polluters and the big lobbies that we have that are so much powerful. So if we start to divide, we have even less chance to succeed.
Isn't it funny how humans do that? We want to nitpick every solution when really the main problem is being created by actually a small group of people. Thanks for calling out the plastics treaty. I think there's obviously so much value in an international agreement, and I am so grateful to the people advocating and doing so much hard work on that front. And you're right, we need also a groundswell of like on the ground work to meet in the middle because otherwise a tree is meaningless if it can't be implemented in each of the areas. That actually brings us to our last question, which I ask every single guest. Um, Take your time. It's a bit of a big question, but if you could have a billboard that is shown to all of the most powerful people in this industry, the decision makers, um, with a message on it or an image, what would your billboard say about your mission in life and what you're trying to do?
Um, a billboard, you mean like a
Yeah,
list of
something that these decision makers or big industry players in the plastic world would have to see that you were able to show them. Um, the billboard doesn't have to necessarily say all these points. It can also be an image, but what would yours say about your issue?
it's a good question because every time we show the problem, we have the impression that that will change people
Right.
behaviors. And like we tend to see, look at this problem, look at how polluted it is, look how bad it is, look at the impact on animals and human. And in the end, you realize that people are, oh, this is so bad. What can we do? And then they
Yeah.
don't do anything. So, except maybe if you start saying that it can impact your own health, and create disease, then sometimes that is a powerful change. But yeah, otherwise, what I prefer doing when talking to decision makers or big players like that is to show concrete solutions that can be put in place, because that's, I think, sometimes more powerful in driving changes.
Right.
Otherwise, people say, okay, there is a problem, but what can I do? My industry is like that, and I don't know how to change it. If you don't bring me the solution, if you bring me the problem, it's really what you face most of the time. People are just like, yes, okay, they know there is a problem, but they just don't know what to do about it, whether they are decision makers, big industry players, or just consumers. So the main challenge maybe is to bring a roadmap with concrete solutions. I think like policy solutions, solution on the ground, so that they know how to do. And when I mean, I've been visiting so many countries like that where they don't have the information, they don't know what they can do concretely, even like government and decision makers. So yeah, I think I would like to share really concrete action and solution and good examples that they can directly replicate.
Yeah, I love that answer. This question always shows me a little bit of insight into the guest's mind. And what I gathered from that is you're a solutionist. And it's true when you're talking to these big players, they're not necessary. They want to know like what is the fastest way we can execute to solve this instead of feeling burdened and overwhelmed by the problem. And as someone who works in like media and narrative and storytelling, I think you're completely right that our angle with plastics and also with more plant-based eating is the human health component. If we start uplifting all of the risks associated with these issues on our families and our children and ourselves, I think we're going to see a huge change in consumer behavior. So, thank you for all of the work you're doing
Mhm.
on all of those fronts because this is not an easy challenge to take on during your lifetime. And I see the work and the approaches that you're using and how they're creating a better future for our ocean.
Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for your work as well.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. And if you all learned something about Simon or Plastic Odyssey, go give them a follow, learn more about their work, their programs. We just got into a few of their programs on this episode, but their website has so much more to dive into. And their expeditions in 2026 are going to be ones you're going to want to watch. So
Mhm.
thanks for listening to Sustainability in the Sea.